Hey everyone, how are you doing this lovely, what is it, Monday? Sorry for having to adjust that. You know what? I have great news though. And guess what the news is? As of tomorrow, I am going to have one of the most modernized cell phones possible that Samsung makes. So my videos might look a little more upgraded. I just want you guys to understand and embrace yourselves because it might be a shock to it might be sensory overload is all I'm gonna say. um so yeah, I do extremely basic videos. For one, it's very easy, I'm comfortable with it. I'm just one of those people where it's like, I originally began this channel with not meant to have any extra fluff and frills to it at all, so I'm just kind of used to winging it. But you know, all things change, and we're going through a huge, I would say, digital slash technical evolution of sorts. And I believe it or not, I do know a couple of things about technology. I always prefer to stay behind though. While everyone's moving ahead, I deliberately stay behind on purpose. And there's a method to my madness, and maybe one of these days I'll get into it. But I hope you all are doing well. And it took me a while to decide what I was going to make tonight's video about. So it's something I think that's going to be, I don't know. I find that I talk more to my YouTube audience and I let things go than when I was seeing a psychiatrist. That's what I find funny, because everyone is telling us to see a therapist, which it doesn't get more therapeutic than a psychiatrist, because I saw the evil, Antichrist himself, according to Scientology beliefs. But it's interesting seeing how some of it is helpful and some of it's not. And in many instances, I find just speaking openly to people that are my friends, I find that to be a lot more therapeutic in certain ways, because I'm comfortable with discussing things that I've done that may not necessarily be looked upon in a positive light. Now, I do want to say I understand my dress is a little more low cut than usual. And I'm going to give a special shout out. I did this on purpose for Thomas Neo Incel Anderson. Calling you out, you big bad boy. I know you like staring at our Hooters and you're completely obsessed. So I thought I would wear this on purpose, give you a shout out. You know why? Because I know you're not happy about it and you're not disgusted by me doing this either. You're having a, what's it called? Like a short circuit in your brain where you're like, do I like this? Do I not like it? What do I do? Because I've never seen boobies before. And that's why you are the most beloved incel in this community. Because you just can't help. You can't help being inept to everything on earth. You can't help when to have social cues and when to be social and when to say certain things about women. You cannot help it. So I'm doing this to sort of help you. And maybe instead of making jokes, you'll understand what these mean and why when you make jokes like that, it grosses us out and we don't find it humorous. Now, maybe if the Pepper Boys made a joke about it, it would be humorous, but you don't have the swag. You don't got the swagger that the Peppered Boys do. You don't even show your face. So, I personally would just give it up until you learn how to do some cool stuff and learn how to make fun of women the proper way. Ansel Anderson, do it the proper way. I told everyone I was going to do this video a while back. I have discussed how when at 22 years old, that's when I realized for good that the Church of Scientology was batshit nuts. Like everything, which I already knew. By that time, my nephew died, my sister had disconnected, my mother was declared. I had already, OSA was contacting me, telling me not to say certain things, and I'm kind of putting two and two together, realizing the Church of Scientology is just a batshit nuts belief system. especially for someone like me, where I've mentioned this before, I am, and I'm not exaggerating this, in my age group at the time, early 2000s, we'll say I was 19 to 22 years old when I started going on my spiritual journey away from Scientology. 19 to 20 years old. I was the only person in my age range in the entire state of Arizona that grew up in it and that also had to endure what I did. So I didn't have any Scientology friends at all. I didn't. I had my nieces and nephews. Might want to zip this up. Sorry, Neo Incel Anderson, you got a little glimpse for 10 minutes, and hopefully you'll do some studies about women and social skills. But I digress. I don't want to derail my video about you. So, I was going through that, and I just started realizing and looking around the world around me, since I did grow up as a public Scientologist, I think we are underrepresented, although we make up a majority of Scientology stories. Public Scientologists and ex-Scientologists, we make up at least 85 to 90% of the Scientology population at whole, which stories should be disclosed because you have people like Steve Mango that were sucked in by Celebrity Center. You have certain people that were sucked in by Narconon. You have certain people that were sucked in by Able. Certain people that were sucked in by on and on and on. Like CCHR, for example, Citizens Commission on Human Rights. They hire people, and you could be a never-end Scientologist and take a job on, and you think it's this important place called Citizens Commission of Human Rights, and next thing you know, you're actually working for the fucking Church of Scientology, helping them out. Even though they might give you a salary, they do that to unsuspecting individuals. So they have their staff members, their Sea Org, but they also reach their tentacles out these days to different religious groups, different rehabs, and they present themselves like they are a member of the community, and they're doing like social awareness and religious awareness. It's actually pretty disgusting, and I think there needs to be more community awareness on how detrimental that is and what a huge impact that's actually having on our public school systems, our drug rehab systems, our prison and incarceration systems, our legal systems, everything. Scientology is currently getting its tentacles in everything, and it can do so because of its quote unquote, religious labeling, which, trust me, I want to say cult all the time, but I do have to emphasize religion because that's what we're fighting. We have to realize that our government considers it a religion, and that's what we're fighting against. That's honestly is what we are fighting against, to hopefully one day get our government's attention that the Scientology is not a religion. It's an evil cult. One of the most evil cults I've ever seen. And what is interesting is how, rapidly our government went after the Heaven's Gate cult. Our government went after Waco. Our government went after Warren Jeffs. Our government went after, what is it, NXIVM. And more. Our government has been like that nonstop. The one cult our government has never been that vigilant against is Scientology. Although Scientology has all of the attributes and authoritative culty things, it's mainly because Scientology is a religion now, and our government is like, we're not going after a religion. And it sucks, trust me. I hate living in a country that's like that and has that sort of attitude, but it is what it is, and I hope that someday eventually there is a politician that understands, what is actually occurring. So, as far as my Hare Krishna thing, I've always been a little bit of a spiritual, I don't want to say a cult hopper. I know exactly what a cult hopper is. It's someone that just jumps from cult to cult to cult. When I was growing up, I had a huge influence on me with all of the Roman Catholics in my family. Again, my father's side is predominantly Mexican Roman Catholic, and my mother's side is the Portuguese Roman Catholic side. It's very traditional. Their services are absolutely beautiful, entirely different than a Scientology service. And when I was discovering on my own, just kind of free falling and doing spiritual seeking of my own, I tried forcing myself to be a Catholic. I was getting in touch with my Catholic uncle. He sent me a Bible. I was reading it. I was going to church. But I do notice with Catholicism and Christianity in general, you have to feel it. You know what I mean? You can't force yourself to be a Christian. And I tried. I'm not an atheist, but I mean, I've always said I have an open door policy with Jesus and God 24 hours a day. And I don't do things deliberately that are blasphemous towards believers of Jesus. I try not to, because I know that's a, hurtful thing to do. And I don't agree with some people, their way of going about doing it, like Chris Shelton, for example, making fun of Christians, and when that dude is still acting like a Scientologist and half the atheist community has disowned him, and then he's making fun of Christianity. Like, I've never gone down that route that he does. I don't agree with it. I have questions. I ask people like Marilyn, Keela, certain people in this community questions that I don't understand about Christianity. I think it's great to have an open dialogue where we can understand each other. But, you know, I pretty much have been told by the Christian community numerous times, simply because I believe in reincarnation, I can never be accepted as a Christian. And I believe in reincarnation from the Buddhism Eastern sect, like philosophy, where sort of samsara and the whole karmic cycle of energy going over and over again. That's what I believe in. And I believe eventually, when you get rid of your ego and all the bad parts, eventually you don't need to come back, and you are in what would be called heaven, or spiritual nirvana in the Eastern philosophies. So I've been told by the Catholic Church, Christians, that I just can't be a part of it because of my reincarnation belief. And that's fine with me. I don't get mad about it, because those are belief systems that have been instilled for, a couple thousand years. Buddhism, what, 4,000 years? I'm not here to argue with, and make different religious belief systems change their ways because of me. I began going to a Hare Krishna temple. I don't go there anymore, but it was, this is my story and why it's interesting. I wanted to get involved in Hinduism and Buddhism, and I was very young. I think I was, again, 21, 22. There's a place in Chandler, Arizona. It's called the ISKCON Temple, ISKON, and that stands for the International Society of Krishna Consciousness. And I really loved Hindu artwork. I loved George Harrison, the Beatles, My Sweet Lord, Hare Krishna. You guys remember that song, right? I was into all that shit. So I started going to the ISKCON temple, and it was unlike any ceremony I have ever attended. Religious, spiritual ceremony. You leave that place, I don't care who you are, man. You could be like the biggest atheist on the planet. If you go to a Hindu Hare Krishna service, you will leave feeling like, holy shit, like that was so like psychedelic, like playing the tambourines, jumping around and listening to kick-ass music. And it is a very psychedelic spiritual experience without having to do drugs. And I felt this huge spiritual outlet and this tradition that I never experienced in Scientology. Scientology is very clinical. It's very boring. I mean, look at the leader, L. Ron Hubbard and David Miscavige. It doesn't get more fucking boring than that. Seriously. like listening to them behind a desk talk and wearing their Navy uniforms and, hip hip hooray and stuff that mainstream society looks at as batshit nuts. But when you're being raised in Scientology, you secretly know it's batshit nuts, but you still have to endure it until you turn 21 and you get the fuck out of your parents' house and run for the hills as far as humanly possible from Scientology or anything related to it. Um, so yeah, I went for 6 months to this Hare Krishna temple, and I can't show you guys now, but half my back, I actually have a huge tattoo back piece, and those of you who have met me have seen it. It's also, it's on my Facebook. Half my back is tattooed with a bunch of Hindu art that I received in my 20s. I have Vishnu, Shiva, Brahma. I have a whole space scene, galactic kind of. It's total Krishna, man. Total Krishna, total, you know, who knows what the hell I was thinking back then, but I had a lot of creative psychedelic juices flowing through my brain in my 20s, and I got like half of a Hindu tattoo back piece, and it's there to stay with me forever. It was 24 hours altogether in tattoo artwork. They don't do it at once, of course. They usually go 5 to 6 hours and stop, and then you go back a month later once it's healed. Then they do another one. But yeah, it's about 22, 24 hours back in the late 90s, early 2000s, and it hurt like a biatch. I don't care what anyone says about getting back tattoos. That shit hurts. If you got over 3 hours of back ink, you know it fucking hurts. And don't say otherwise, or you're being a poser. You're fucking being a poser. Pinche cabrons. I'm just joking around. Anyways, so I joined, the Hare Krishnas for 6 months, and what's weird is the leader at the time was this white guy from San Francisco. Somehow he ended up as the leader of the International Hare Krishna or International Society of Krishna Consciousness here in Chandler, Arizona. He was from San Francisco, and you could tell he was one of those like Beatles, like George Harrison, Hare Krishna dudes that dropped like shitloads of acid, and somehow they gave him the head honcho job in Arizona. I mean, honestly, I don't even know if he's alive anymore, because I think he was pushing 70 back when I saw him in like 2000, the early 2000s. But, I learned a lot, and it was great. The thing about Hindu, or, the Hare Krishnas, which I have heard from numerous people that it is a cult, it can be a high control group. I didn't experience anything of that nature, but then again, I was not like a fully dedicated member where I was with them and dressing the robes. I was going like Sunday and maybe one other day a week to do their worship, their ceremony for Krishna. And the reason why I stopped going was he noticed I was talking to this other guy, and he was from India, but he moved to New Jersey, and he was becoming like this corporate. I'm not saying the corporation this dude works at, but it's one of the largest ones in America. And if I stayed with that dude and what I saw recently, what he's doing, I'm like, man, I should have been doing the Hare Krishna dance a lot longer, because I would have it made right now. But I'm just kidding, ladies. I can't. That's why I've never been married. I can't stay with a guy because he has a lot of money. Because most of them end up being not all they're cracked up to be. And just where I live, it's easier to be with someone, break it off without government ties of marriage. That is my insight. That's the way I do things. But the leader of the Hare Krishna place, he noticed that I was talking to this guy before this young man, this Hare Krishna guy, turned big insurance mogul that I'm talking about. He wasn't like that when I knew him, but we were hitting it off. Not boyfriend girlfriend stuff, but it was just cordial. Well, the leader of the Hare Krishnas in Arizona, the white guy I was telling you about from San Francisco, he was trying to get me into an arranged marriage with this young man. And the way he was talking to me is unlike anything I experienced in Scientology, but I knew, I'm like, this is not good. I'm being looked at as just a young, naive woman that's being used by this, like, Hare Krishna cult and the leader so that he can put me in this, like, arranged marriage with one of his, adherents to kind of keep it going. So once I started getting the arranged marriage, I'm just a young bimbo cult vibes from the Hare Krishnas, I bolted. I bolted quicker than shit. And I've met several Hare Krishnas that have said they have dealt with much worse, and I've heard stories. But it was interesting because that was like my first experience after leaving Scientology of, you have to understand, when you're raised in Scientology, we're hidden from Christianity, we're hidden from like Catholic churches and so forth. So at the time, I went to the Hare Krishnas because in Scientology, when you have a Scientology upbringing, Hare Krishnas are they're kind of considered a normal fucking religion. If you know it, if you were raised in Scientology, it may sound funny, but that they're considered normal. It's kind of rare for an ex-Scientologist to all of a sudden go to like a Catholic church or something. I kind of give people like my parents a pass for that because they were both raised Roman Catholic and they discovered Scientology in their late 20s, early 30s. I would say late 20s actually. I give them a little pass because I have a lot of friends that were raised in hardcore Christian fundamentalist upbringings, and then they find these belief systems that are alternative, that are weird, that are strange. Well, my parents back then, they found Scientology because they wanted to escape having Christianity force-fed down their throats. Nowadays, today, I see the new generation of people doing that. They want to escape Christianity and their upbringing of it force-fed down their throats. But there's a whole different plethora of weird cults out there. I can only speak on the Scientology one. And I was sort of rambling today, but I just wanted to let you know that, that was my little mishmash story. I did get involved with the Hare Krishnas for 6 months until the leader was trying to get me into an organized marriage, and that creeped me out. So I say trust your intuition, and if you're a part of a group that's making you do things you're uncomfortable with and you don't like it, it's very simple. Just run for the hills. Run, and don't look back. All right, so I'm going to end off now. I love you guys. Thank you. And hopefully when I get my new phone set up soon, it's going to be high-tech time. It'll be like high-tech time, and, we'll see how it happens. All right. A rato, vatos. Peace.